This video is part of the Missouri Scholars Academy 2021 Comics, Culture, and the World video series. An interview with Wendy from Legends, Comics, and Coffee, June 9th, 2021.
I am Wendy, co-owner of Legend Comics and Coffee here in Omaha, Nebraska.
When did you begin reading and collecting comics? And what drew you to comics?
Well, that is an interesting. My partner, Jason, was a big comic fanatic when we met. Surprisingly enough, I had not ever read a comic book before. I was a sci-fi nerd as a kid, loved watching all the shows, Battlestar, Buck Rogers, and everything with my dad. Loved science stuff. I had a crush on Carl Sagan, like it was one of those, I was one of those nerdy sci-fi kids, but I never read comics. And when we met, Wednesday lunchtime was the only time we really had free. We were both in the restaurant industry. So that kind of became our weekly dedicated date night, but it was a date type date. And so we would always go down to Zio's in the old market, and then we'd hit Anarchy Comics, which was in the lower level of the old market at the time, and we'd pick up his comics. And one day I just started picking up comics, and I loved them, and I couldn't believe that I had never been exposed to the medium before.
What were some early comics you read?
Y the Last Man, Transmetropolitan. I was a huge Hunter S. Thompson fan, so that was an easy direction for me to go. Here in Omaha, I've witnessed a lot of positivity, which is odd, and I don't know if it's because I'm a female owner, and so maybe that helps people when they come in. Now there's a lot of negativity around there too, or maybe just shock. Like, we still to this day, our staff here is the majority female, and we still get the phone calls, and people assume that they're talking to the coffee shop side because of female answers, or occasionally the I don't want to even say stereotypical, but the older male comic reader will come in and not necessarily want advice from any of the females on staff. But that is super rare. I hear about it happening more at other places, but I also hear that it's changed a lot. There are still your stereotypical shops that are unkept and, cash registers are thrown up in the corner and, very male dominated, kind of like an old boy network still. And I think that still probably happens, and you hear about it. Obviously, there are female creators that are very powerful voices in the industry that bring a lot of the issues to light. And but I think it's changing. I think it's changing for the better, and I hope one day it won't be an issue, male or female, whatever your gender. I hope it's just, hey, they're writing a good comic, or hey, they're producing or publishing a great comic, or whatever. I hope to take gender, race, and all that just out of it. A creator can just be a creator, an owner can just be an owner. It doesn't have to be, oh, she's a female and owns a comic book shop. I hope I can just be Wendy, and I own a comic book shop. Before we opened the shop, I'd say I probably dealt with the most of it. We decided, because Jason and I wanted to have a very welcoming shop, not your stereotypical shop that people used to think of, at least when it came to comic book stores. And we definitely did not want to do anything old boy network like. We didn't want to have the shabby bleached posters and the weird lighting, although we do have obscure weird lighting here, but it's tasteful. But there were just things we knew we did not want to do and things we knew we wanted to do. And so I went around to all the stores individually as a female and new to the industry, because I had only been reading comics for a year and a half at that point. So I went around by myself with my little notebook in the car. Of course, I don't want to bring that into the stores, and, did my do's and don'ts. I will be very honest with you. The do's list was one item: sell comics. My don'ts list was lengthy and long. One store in particular, I felt very, oh, she is just a girl. The person that was helping me noted that comics were delayed because of the holiday, and kind of laughed at me about it, like, oh, you should have known, or silly girl, you didn't know. And I was like, it was off-putting, but I was like, okay, whatever, I'll still browse and I'll still probably buy a comic, because I didn't want to just go in and be like, oh, I was on a journey. I needed to figure out what I didn't want to do. And one thing was not greet people poorly, make them feel weird or out of place. The next week when I went back into that same store, though, I got laughed at. Oh, you got the right day this time. I didn't know if he was sexist or just had a really poor sense of humor, but it was very off-putting, very uninviting. And I swore to myself and Jason, I'm like, we will never, ever talk to people like that. Like, it was very awkward. And I do occasionally get that here. The shock, like, oh, you're the owner. Like, I still get people like years into this place, years. Like, we've been open since 2007, and I've been around, maybe not so much in the first few years because I still worked full time outside of the shop, but since here, I've been here 50 hours plus a week, and this person has seen me this whole time, but didn't think I was an owner. I thought that Jason and Dave were the owners, and I was just Jason's wife. So there are still those people in the industry, whether they're professionals or patrons.
What role do you think comic book stores play in comics culture?
Comic books, I mean, it is a community, whether, and it not just any one shop or any one city or state. I mean, it is a community. When you have conventions, and especially the big conventions, Chicago, Denver, San Diego, those are people from all over, and that's a community. We all have that shared interest, and in whatever variety. Some people don't read comics, but they like the characters, but they don't read comics. They're into the movies and they cosplay or whatever, but it's all connected. It's all there. We are a community, and comic book stores are the backbone of that community, because without comic book stores, everybody says, or asks, like, are you afraid of digital? Well, that's been the threat since we opened in 2007. Sure, I'm afraid of digital, just like any other periodical. It has, the sales have decreased over decades. Sure. But there will always be people wanting to read books, comic books. They're always going to be around. And the comic book stores are the background of that. Yeah, you can order them online, but you miss out on that experience, that talking to the shop owner, manager, employee, other customers, that interaction that opens up other chapters, other universes. And that's really what we wanted to build here, and I think we did a pretty good job with it.
What advice do you have for women who are new to comics?
Don't get discouraged. If one store you don't get a good vibe, get out of there, find another store. If there's not a store in your area, there are other ways to engage with stores. Do your research. If you're uncomfortable at first, try to grab a friend to get into it, to go to a store. So then at least, it's a buddy system thing. But do your research, go online. Just visit their Facebook pages at first, that try to get like a virtual tour going on. See how they respond to customers, like in any correspondence on their page. See how they respond to customers. See if that person's going to make you feel comfortable, because that person is a representative of their business. So if they're saying things online that you're like, ew, don't go there, because that's going to be what they're like in the store. So don't get discouraged. There is an LCS out there that will be a good fit for you, or at least an adequate fit, to where you can get your books without feeling weird or uncomfortable or out of place or whatever it is. And if you don't have that shop, look around. There are plenty of shops that you can do mail order through. It's Facebook. Come to our Facebook page. We are welcome. We are always welcome to answer questions. We field calls from all over. People wanting to start shops. We love to answer the questions. Don't get discouraged. There are beautiful works of art out there. When you get the right combination of artist and writer, it's magic. It really is, and it will take you to places that you never thought you would go.
Finish the sentence. If I were a superhero,
I would keep it a secret, and I would do as much good in the world that I could. I don't need all what's the term, accolades.
Final comments.
Read comics.
Read comics.
And be good to everyone.
Thank you to Wendy and Legends Comics and Coffee. You have been watching a video from the Missouri Scholars Academy 2021 video series, Comics, Culture, and the World. And as always, be safe, be smart.